they look as if they've been scrunched up and thrown away, and that clearly is part of the aesthetic that you've been striving to achieve. And I think that aesthetic, coupled with the inherent aesthetic of the material itself, is speaking volumes for you. And I wonder whether that perhaps has to be listened to a bit more, and allow your initial ideas about the final destination of the product as to where it sits and what environment and how it's going to be sold, to this whole thing. The energy that comes from these people is playfulness. It is to engage, it's to touch. You want them to touch, you want them to think, oh, a contradiction. You know, I thought that was soft and it was tactile, and actually quite hard, and there's a fragility to it that's there. And then it will absolutely ask you, what am I supposed to do with it? Well, what do you want to do with it? That's really the type of engagement you would be looking for from people. And I think secondly, I think there is no one way of presenting this work. I think, yes, it could quite happily sit within a small exhibit within a gallery. You know, for example, the DC, the little shop that's there. You know, you could retail that as just a quirky little thing that could be quite easily sort of, you know, £10, a throwaway thing that's there. Or if you want to develop it into more sophisticated, become larger pieces, and therefore that's where the risk is involved, because you have those working at that scale. But the risk, and I think the craft of this, is to enlarge that, to see how that works. And again, you would understand how the aesthetic of this piece works on a larger scale. And I think that's where, in terms of an object, it needs to be further explored in terms of the aesthetic of it, and before you could perhaps put it into different settings with people. What you have here is something that's very playful, and it's quite sophisticated, and I absolutely see it sitting within craft and that relationship between craft and design. I think because of its sophistication and because the humour that's in it, I think that tells you as to the type of engagement that's required from people. Users are people, that's what they are. So you're asking, what type of person would be interested in this? You know, and what type of environment would this sit well within, where engagement from people would be quite dynamic rather than passive. Put these little things in, beautiful little dishes for perhaps at the end of the meal, when you put a little truffle with the bill. Thank you very much. You know, that could sit, that perhaps should be accompanied by a round sort of dish that's crumpled too. You know, that it sits there, and then you've got those two together. Perhaps it's not seeing it in isolation. You know, that they're seen as on their own, but maybe it needs to be in conversation with something else. Maybe not, but at these scales, I mean, it's there is a real urge to put this and to crush it with my hand. You know, and you think, well, that would break. But then, why not allow people to do that? Would that be such a difficult thing? What is, please excuse my brutality here, I think you are, you're underestimating your work by trying to put it into a potpourri bowl or a fruit bowl. I would go, leave what it should be. Allow the product to speak for itself without imposing an end use on it. Allow people to come to these with their own imagination to say, what do you want to do with it? You know, and I think that's where you want to engage with people, and there is the opportunity of, you know, just they're saying playful, clearly you're playful, that's what's come through, so be playful with the whole thing. Mentally, you're underestimating, it's the material aesthetic, it's the material that's sort of allowing things to give voice to the whole thing. I think also it's the simplicity of origami, you know, that's coming through, and I think I wouldn't hide away from that either. You know, that has to be, you know, clearly where your inspiration has been drawn from too. Work, it's actually in the material innovation, isn't it? It's material experimentation. That's the aspect of product design that you've explored. You have something, an experiment here that is really interesting results, that can clearly go on to do much more.